Party.
Thank you, Cathaoirleach, and can I begin, like others, in expressing my sincere condolences to the family, the friends and work colleagues of the late Detective Garda Colm Harkin. I think the whole country was shocked when the news came through of his brutal murder. It has united the nation in grief, and I think has underscored for all of us the importance of our police force. An Garda Síochána, the protectors of the peace. Unlike many police forces, they're not law enforcers. They are founded as protectors of the peace, by and large unarmed people who go about working so assiduously in our communities to preserve the peace. I think it's really important that we stand in solidarity with them when one of their members is so brutally taken from them. I too would congratulate the Taoiseach and the Minister of State here present for the success of the Irish bid over many years. I think many ministers, in fact governments, have been involved in various parts of the campaign to secure a seat on the Security Council of the United Nations. Can I, Cathaoirleach, I know it's not normal to mention individual civil servants, but I think Ambassador Byrne-Nason, who is our ambassador to the United Nations and who was the pivotal person in organising in recent times the campaign, has played a pivotal role, and it was my privilege to work with Ambassador Geraldine Byrne-Nason when she worked with the Economic Management Council in a previous administration, and her skills were evident then. And I think it's a great tribute to Ireland that it was a difficult battle to actually get a vote in excess of the vote, for example, for a very international country like Canada. And we did it because of the values of Ireland expressed over very many years. And it's a challenge to us now to be true on the Security Council to those values. Others have referenced, for example, the plight of Palestine and the Palestinian people. I think we have to go beyond lip service to that. We have to be moral leaders in pushing that agenda, because decades, generations have passed where that issue has been a running sore in terms of our international affairs. And I think there'll be other challenges next year in relation to the playing out of the COVID disaster across the world. We can see what's happening in South America now. I listened yesterday very carefully to the views of the WHO in relation to the impact of COVID in Africa, which has yet to have full impact. But it could be devastating, and we need to have a sense of solidarity. And I'm a little bit concerned already that some European countries are already banding together to have first dibs at any vaccine that might emerge. That has to be an international, universal human property if a vaccine is achieved, and it has to be distributed in an open way to everybody as quickly as is possible. And these are the challenges that I think that we have to face in that. But we'll have many opportunities, no doubt, to discuss our role in the United Nations when that seat is taken. In relation to the European Council, unusually there was no shared post-Council statement after the event. Instead, there was a short set of remarks released by President Michel on behalf of the Council. As the Taoiseach has already informed the House, I suppose the main focus of the debate has been money this time. Not for the first time, I can assure you, at European Council meetings. Money in relation to the multi-annual financial framework for the Union for the next 7 years, and the new recovery fund. I must say I'm very glad, and I said it on the last time I had an opportunity to speak here, that there is at last international solidarity within the European Union on recovery. And it's because everybody's affected by this particular pandemic. When we were arguing for Eurobonds for those countries that were affected by the last economic crisis, that solidarity was slow in developing and never developed to the extent that it should early on. But even in terms of the recovery fund that's there, President Michel signalled what he said was an emerging consensus, but signalled that difficulties requiring further discussion and negotiation remained. Now, the Taoiseach has alluded to some of those. For Ireland and some others, obviously the big issue is the distribution of the funds that are now signalled to be, that will become available. This new recovery fund. How will it be divvied out? And I raised this with you, Minister of State McEntee, on the last occasion we had debate some 2 weeks ago, when it was signalled then that we were going to get something like €3 billion from this very large fund, and that sounded and is a paltry sum considering the impact that COVID-19 has had on our economy and our people. I asked you to confirm it was €3 billion, and you indicated that that was the initial indication. And I asked what was the status of the Irish-Belgian ask for the factoring in of Brexit into this consideration. And I'd like to hear specifically, when we do come to questions, what progress we've made in relation to that. Because we also have to determine whether this money is going to be given by way of loans or direct grant payments. There was some indication of the breakdown of the initial €750 billion, partly in loans and partly in direct grants. I mean, the indication to us, if we were told you can borrow €3 billion out of this fund, but you have to pay it back, quite frankly, that is pointless and useless, because we can borrow money anyway at historically low interest rates. We don't need a new fund to do that. This week, Ireland, through the NTMA, borrowed €750 million in short-term treasury bills. Now, they're only short-term and they're historically lower than long-term bonds. But €750 million we borrowed for 6 months at a negative yield of 0.49%. We were given money. They paid us to take that €750 million, and it was 3.8 times oversubscribed. In terms of longer-term money, which obviously this money will be, earlier this month, in June, on the 9th of June, the NTMA borrowed €6 billion in a 10-year bond at a yield of 0.23%. So less than 0.25% interest we can borrow money at right now. So the notion that it's any great concession to us to be able to borrow money from this new fund is no concession at all. Borrowing for us is not the problem. What we need is the ability to have direct cash. And the whole idea, I understood that this was to be a new extension of cohesion funding, where countries that had difficulties, as we had when we joined the European Union, were given cash payments, not loans. And I also am interested, obviously, and we can discuss this again when we have a chance to ask questions, in the timeline for the distribution of the money, because is it, as the Taoiseach indicated, between now and 2024, or is it during the entire duration of the MFF up to 27? Because money at the end of that period will be of little enough value. I've only got a minute left, but I want to just briefly talk about Brexit. The Financial Times is reporting rising hopes of a compromise between the EU and UK. Diplomats, it said, confirmed a shift in mood. Now, there's going to be no extension to the transition. It suggested a middle ground shift on fisheries, and that really caused me some concern. Again, we'll be able to ask questions at the end of this. What does that mean in terms of, I raised it on the last occasion, I was told there was no shift from the mandate given to Michel Barnier, but now they're saying that there is a shift of position. And the Taoiseach indicated when he was speaking earlier that we'd never get it as good as we have now. So what is the new negotiating position? Has there been? And finally, on the level playing field issue, the UK apparently now will say that they'll initially accept EU standards, but retain the right to alter them into the future, at which point new tariffs would would be applied by the EU. That is no basis to plan a trade agreement into the future. It's to build it on sand and uncertainties. I wish I had more time, but I'll be able to tease out these matters, Cathaoirleach, when we have a chance to question the Minister of State later in this debate.
Thank you, Deputy Howland. I now call on